Hi friends, welcome back to Mama Birds. We are just headed home. We just tackled Costco. I'll share with you the haul that we got. It's not huge by any means. You'll find that with me. I don't do large hauls because I don't buy anything unless it's on sale. So welcome to the channel. I'm Robin if you are new again, and yeah, consider sticking around. We do budget-friendly stuff around here, lots of homemaking, lots of food prep, lots of mom stuff, hacks and tips and tricks and all the things. So if you're into that kind of stuff, stick around. We are literally just driving home now, on the way home from Costco. I do have to hit up another store at some point in time today. I think we'll probably do that after my kiddo naps. It is about 12:30 now, so he's probably gonna go down pretty fast as soon as we get home. So I'll share the haul with you. Here's the haul from Costco. Getting right into it, we got a homestyle potato salad. These are about $6 or $7. Coffee, this was on sale, $4 off tin, so I grabbed it. Bananas are a staple in our house. This was actually a bit of a splurge. I don't typically buy this type of a thing, like a prepackaged meal idea, but it's actually going to help me with meal prep, and it was only $6.99 a kilogram, which was actually a really good sale. I think it was like almost 50%, something like that, but like $7.73 for this big thing of quinoa salad, I thought was a great idea. So that'll help me this weekend with some meal prep and not actually having to do that. These shirts are for Mike. They are mediums. The regular price was $20 and I got them for under $10 each. I believe it was $9.97. They're Tommy Hilfiger and they're really nice collared shirts, so he can wear those to work, which is great. And then I did grab 2 more bags of the pot stickers because they are still on sale for $11.99. So if you're into pot stickers or a quick and easy meal, just make some rice and throw in a veggie, it's a great plan. It's a great idea. I grabbed 2 bags last time I went to Costco, and this time I grabbed 2 more just because they're just so easy and they're delicious. They're great. So that is the haul for the most part. Today our plans have shifted. We had big plans to be at the ball field all weekend. Mike was playing in his year-end tournament and it got canceled because of the rain. So we're just out on a quick walk around with my little family there in the back. And I figured I would just share a little bit of this with you just because it is a huge part of our life and being out in nature. So, but also I've discovered a few things here and we're gonna create a little project for ourselves. So I grabbed my son's little sand bucket here and we're starting to fill it with all these wild edibles. So the darker blueberries are called Saskatoon berries. The smaller round ones are pin cherries, so they're like a wild cherry here in the area. And the larger red berries are actually rose hips. So we are going to, I'm not sure if I'm going to include the rose hips, but we're definitely going to use the pin cherries and the Saskatoon berries. And I think we're just going to make a little jam or jelly. And I'll just call it a wild berry jam or wild berry jelly. But the red ones do have pits in them, so I'm going to probably have to sift it out. So it'll probably be more of a jelly, but yeah, so these are the berries that we're harvesting here on our walk today. I'm gonna come back here tomorrow with him, and I think we're gonna pick a couple of bless you. We're gonna pick a couple of buckets of berries because there are some choke cherries, the Saskatoon berries, and the pin cherries. I can just make the wild berry jelly or jam, and there's also some rose hips, and I wasn't actually gonna do anything with rose hips this year just because I find them to be a lot of work, but they're beautiful. So, but yeah, we're definitely gonna come back and get some berries. I'm hoping tomorrow, so that'll be next up in this video. Okay friends, we actually picked a different spot. We're gonna go get some berries. I know that there are some here because I have picked some in the past, so might have to do some trudging through the woods, but there is a great green space back there and we can get access to it behind the playground. So double win. My kiddo's in his muddy buddy, but it is starting to pour rain, so I'm probably not going to film much of this, but just want to let you know that that's what we're doing, picking berries. So this is what we've got. It's been maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. But I mean, like, we've just been taking our time. My kids just been playing in the trees and the rocks and stuff, but it's not very much. But we did get some raspberries, which were super lucky. Raspberries are definitely done for our area and are very difficult to find in any sort of good condition. But the Saskatoon berries are also almost done too, so I think we're almost late to the party here. But I've found that the trees with the berries that are actually a little bit more in the bush, so shaded, seem to be really nice. So I've been kind of trying to get in and grab some of the larger berries intentionally rather than just grabbing clusters at a time. And yeah, it's just not going very good at this location. So we're gonna play at the park for a little bit, and then I'm gonna head over to that other location. Okay guys, it is becoming too difficult for me to separate these berries because I really wanted to show you what the difference was, but it's just becoming a little bit too difficult and they're all going in the same pot anyway, so I'm just going to show you what I have so far. In this canister here, this little container, we have the Saskatoon berries. They're very, very similar to a blueberry. They're a little bit tart. They're definitely a little bit tart and sour, but the consistency is very, very similar to a blueberry. Here is the Saskatoon berry, and you can see how they grow in clusters. The peak of ripeness is when they're dark. So they're kind of a little bit seedy and fleshy on the inside. There's no pit or anything like that. It's very similar to a blueberry. And then also in here now, I put some what are called choke berries. You can see in this image how they grow in cluster as well, same as the Saskatoon berry. They are kind of more of a plum flavor, and like you can see there's a couple of seeds on the inside. So it does also look, yeah, let's see if I can get another one. It also looks like a blueberry. Like on the plant, the berries form like clusters. So they look like a cluster of little cherries on the branch themselves. Okay, so these, here I'll get a handful so you can kind of see, are called choke cherries or pin cherries. I have both varieties in this canister. You can see the more red ones are the pin cherries, and they actually have quite a long sort of stem on them like this, and they are hanging from each branch individually. This is the most accurate photo I could find that depicts a pin cherry and how they grow on their individual branches. So they look more like a cherry, like a maraschino cherry or like your traditional cherry. They have a longer stem and they're hanging individually from the tree. Choke cherries look very, very similar. They're a titch darker, a little bit darker, as you can see, in comparison to like a pin cherry. You can see the difference. But the shape is almost exactly the same. The size is almost exactly the same. The only difference is that the choke cherries, they form clusters on a single branch. I'll show you a picture here. So you can see how the main branch has a bunch of little sort of branches off to the side with the clusters of berries. And then not to be confused with the choke berry. So it's kind of tricky to figure out if you don't know what you're talking about or if you don't know what you're looking for, but they're very similar. We also snagged a couple of raspberries. These ones are pretty much the last of the season. They're beautiful and they're delicious, but they are definitely ripe and ready to be used. So what we're gonna do is measure out, I'm gonna clean the rest of them. We're gonna measure out how much berry volume we actually have and then figure out what we can do in regards to a recipe. I might have to do a half recipe because the ones that I was looking at calls for 9 cups of berries or 4.5 cups of like berry puree. So I would have to cook it down and then measure it. So I just want to make sure that I have measured properly and that we can get going on some type of wild berry jam. And here is a recap of all of the berries that we were foraging on this day. There's so many extra berries in the woods, so if you are choosing to forage some of your own fruit, please be mindful and make sure that you know exactly what it is that you're foraging. Sometimes berries can be, not very good for you, if not poisonous, so you really have to be careful. After measuring out all of the berries, we're getting them into this pot. We actually ended up with almost 8 cups, just over 8 cups of berries in total. And that was way more than I thought it was going to be, but we almost hit that 9 cup mark. So we're pretty close. I'm just going to make sure that I, extract as much as I can out of these berries and show you how I do that before we end up putting them in jars. But getting everything into the pot is the first step. I'm rinsing and throwing my jars around that I'm going to be using for this project. Just making sure that they're clean. They were clean before I started doing this, but I always make sure that I just give them a quick wipe down with some soapy water and a nice rinse before I use them. I want to make sure that they are absolutely clean and that there's, no impurities on them whatsoever before I put any of my preserves in them. We are using a 250 ml jar here. These are your sort of wide mouth version of a jam jar. They are typically used for salmon or things like relish and that sort of thing, but we're going to use them in this application for some jam. So we're just now making it to a rolling boil. Basically what we're doing here is creating a juice, and that juice, like by boiling down the berries, that juice is what we're going to use to make the jam or the jelly. We're going to extract as much as we can out of these berries, and what I'm doing is I'm just pushing the berries against the edge of the pot just to kind of break them up and get them to pop and release all their beautiful liquids from the insides of the berries. One of the things that I was reading is that Saskatoon berries are, they have a significant amount of natural pectin. So it makes sense that they're so, that this is so thick, and we haven't added anything except for water. So there's a couple things I wanted to chat about as this is boiling. I'm gonna let it go for probably about 10 minutes. A couple things that I wanted to go over was the recipe. I've looked at lots of recipes, lots of different, reliable sources for wild edibles and jams and all of this stuff. And what I found pretty much across the board is that the Saskatoon berries, while they have a similar recipe, the processing time for the canning portion of this project is actually a little bit longer. So we're gonna use the longer processing time for the jam to accommodate for the Saskatoon berries is the first thing. The second thing is the actual recipe itself is almost the same for all of the berries. So Saskatoon berries, choke berries, choke cherries, pin cherries, and even raspberries are all roughly 2.5 cups of juice to 4 cups of sugar. So my plan for this is to make it no pectin. That was my original intention, just sugar and berries. So if you're choosing to use pectin, just do your research and find out how much sugar to liquid you're going to need. I did read that some of the recipes you have to put a bit of lemon juice in it, but I'm not doing that because I don't have to. So this has been going for a little while now. I just put this on my counter. I put all of the jars inside. This is my Presto digital pressure canner, and we can use this as a water bath canner, so that's what I'm doing today. I put all the jars inside, filled it with water so that the jars were just covered, and set my timer, did all the steps, and now it's just warming up the jars. But I'm going to now strain the jam. Here, have a look. We'll get this strained while those jars are heating up, and I'll show you how I do that. So I've got my tools here. This is just a fine mesh strainer. You could totally use a mesh bag, or they have jam and jelly bags and stuff like that, but this is going to be good enough for me. I have my large, this is a 4-cup measuring cup. I had some hot water, like boiling hot water, like I couldn't put my finger in hot, in here just sitting in my sink. So the glass is actually quite warm, which is perfect because we're putting warm, hot jam into this. So I wanted to make sure it was hot, just in case. So now we're going to ladle in and just kind of mush it around and get rid of all of the, actually I'll probably leave that out for a second. Get all of the berries strained out and in liquid into the jar. This is actually how I made my first few batches of applesauce for the first time. I have since invested in like a pulp machine. It's used for tomatoes and things like that, but this is exactly how I ran applesauce the very first time I ever made it. I've got an extra bowl here. I'm just gonna put it in my sink, and I'm gonna discard this berry mixture into the bowl. If you had chickens or pigs or some sort of livestock that would enjoy this, absolutely by all means give it to them. It's so high in vitamins and all kinds of good things, and I'm sure that they would love it. Using a white towel here probably wasn't the best application. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it is like almost perfectly 2 cups there. So I put 3 cups of liquid that we extracted in here just because it's a 4-cup measure, and I knew I was gonna have more than 4 cups. So I put 3 cups in there, and look how much I'm short of 2 cups. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to add a titch more of water to this to make it exactly 2 cups, and then we will have a double recipe. I think honestly, if I were to scrape down what's on like the outside, it could potentially actually work itself to 2 cups, but I mean, you can't get much closer than that. With the spatula in, it's 2 cups, so that's what I'm going with. I'm gonna put all of our liquid into, I rinsed this out, I washed this out. I'm gonna put all of our liquid back into the pot, and we are gonna bring this to a boil with the sugar. So this is 3 cups. The jar is smoking hot. Oops, I turned on the wrong element. Okay, 3 cups. and then 2 cups for a total of 5, which means we now need to add 8 cups of sugar to this mixture. Once this mixture comes to a boil, we'll set a timer for 5 minutes. I don't think 5 minutes is necessary. I think you're probably okay with just probably 2, maybe even 1 minute, honestly. It's so much sugar, but I'm gonna go with 5 just because that's what I was reading. And just keep an eye on it, but this is a step where you should not walk away from the stoves. So this is our rolling boil. As I'm stirring it, it's not like dissipating, it's continuing to boil as I'm stirring. And I did set a timer, so I've got about 20 more seconds on this, and then we're gonna get into the jars. We're just pulling the jars that we're warming up inside the canner out of the canister now and filling them with that hot syrupy jelly liquid. And to the appropriate headspace, use your recipe for a guide. You can always get a measuring tool out of some kind. And I'm just fast forwarding through this whole process. So all the jam is filled in the jars with the appropriate headspace. I'm wiping down all of the rims because this is a very sugary product with some vinegar and paper towel. And then you are going to put new lids with the rings fingertip tight on each of the jars and get them into the canister to water bath. So I just put that round into the canner. So that was 7 wide mouth jam size jars. So I call them salmon jars, but that's what they are. And we still have quite a bit left. One of Mike's aunts is actually a huge fan of wild berry jams. So I'm actually going to put together 2 pint-sized jars of jam. So larger size. This means that our processing time is going to go up. That's okay. I'm going to do a separate round, so it won't affect this batch at all. I'm going to do a second round with the larger pint-sized jam as a gift to Mike's aunt. So here is the pint. Whatever doesn't fit into this one jar, I'm actually just going to put in a second jar and we'll put it in the fridge. I'm not going to process another full jar, I don't think. No, maybe I will have enough for a full jar. We'll see. Here we go. Yeah, not quite a full jar, so that's okay. We're just going to put it into the fridge. Sorry, I kind of misspoke there. I'm not going to put this directly in the fridge. This is actually a used lid and ring. I'm just going to leave it on my stove because it's still smoking hot. Once it cools down, I'm going to put it in my fridge, but because it's not a full jar, I'm not going to process this. We're just going to eat it in the fridge first. So that's pretty much it for this video. We still have a bit of processing time to do, but the jam is beautiful and I couldn't be more ecstatic about it being a wild edible. So give it a try. Let me know if you have any questions. If you do give it a shot, let me know. My kiddo's about to wake up, so this is all I got left in me. I'll show you a picture of the finished product once it comes out of the canner. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.